Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, dear heart. I just got that last sentence, so I assume you were talking about the functional purpose of the world being to kick us right square in the limitation and show us exactly what we're holding on to. And, of course, the world is relentless. I've been realizing lately that one of the reasons why there's so much apparent separation in us as human beings is that we live from different realities, we live from different stories. And until you can get a story that unites people, they tend to be separated because their realities flow from their stories, flow from the brain cells they have. So people have I'm a member of this religion or that religion story, and of course that religion and that religion don't match my stories, therefore we're separate. And I come from this part of the world and you come from that part of the world and they come from that part of the world, therefore my story is different than theirs, therefore I'm unique and individual, and on and on and on. And I've been realizing recently that there is one story that really does unite all of humanity. And it's the "why is this happening to me again" story. So I've been thinking about how to write this in a way that maybe we can pull some of these people who are separated by a common language, as Winston Churchill said, or think they're separated by a religion or geography or skin color or race or creed, whatever, that virtually everybody plays out. And I feel so blessed that the universe reserved that title for me. It actually came about quite accidentally when I was first teaching the first century Aramaic forgiveness work 45 years ago. The workshop was called The Miracle of Forgiveness. Like, who cares? It was like, just wasn't one of those titles that grabbed you. And I realize that now, didn't think of it back then. And there was a singles magazine actually in Fort Lauderdale that asked me to write an article about relationships. I think that article's still on our website. And the way that I write is slow. I write and I rewrite and I rewrite and pack everything I can into every sentence. And I can remember, for those who were back in Fort Lauderdale back in those early days, I was sitting at Angie's kitchen table. This little Italian lady who was in her 70s, who was attracted to this work way back then, and I actually started out renting a room from her. But I can remember sitting at her kitchen table, and I'm rewriting the article once again, and all of a sudden I look at the opening words of the article, and it's, "Why is this happening to me again? Why are all people the same?" It's like, there's the title of the workshop. And of course, that ultimately became the title of my book. Again, I feel very blessed because it's such an obvious, it literally is the story of humanity. And it doesn't matter where I go when I ask that question. Everybody always gets a grin and a laugh. Sometimes it's a nasty grin, and sometimes it's a, "Oh yeah, I recognize that one." And coming from the space of recognizing that the reason why that's such a common story, why it really does unite us all, pardon me, is because we were all raised in a culture that by the age of 4 had fed us such a brainwash that we all became card-carrying members of the one world religion of blame. Underlying truth is we're creators. Everything that shows up in your life shows up because you set in place an energy to draw it to you. We live in a world of resonance, and the world of resonance is a world of energy exchange. Haven't talked much about resonance lately, but let's look at it from a physics perspective. I have a middle C tuning fork. I hit it on a disc and I put it near a middle A tuning fork. And what happens to the middle A tuning fork? Nothing. But if I hit that same tuning fork on the desk and put it in front of a middle C tuning fork, what happens to the middle C tuning fork? Because it is attuned to the same frequency, there's a transfer of energy from the tuning fork I just hit on the desk to the second tuning fork that a moment ago was standing still. So that's resonance, exchange of information. I like to use the example of, let's imagine I have two baby grand pianos. I open the back of each of them, and I go over and I pound on the keys as hard as I can, that middle C. And at the same time as I pound on that set of keys in this first piano, I've got somebody looking at the other piano and measuring which keys are moving. Of the hundreds of keys in that second piano, the only keys that will be moving in response to that resonance with middle C are the strings associated with middle C in the second piano. Now, in the world of pianos, the first piano doesn't go over and climb up on top of the second piano. It just sets up an energy, literally a frequency, that is moved by air molecules that literally causes the same strings to move. So resonance creates motion. Creator, and we get a really big eyeful when we read the opening words in the book of John in the New Testament. And now we're not talking about theology, I'm talking about physics, I'm talking about physiology. If you read those words, it doesn't say, as we're told, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word became flesh. It says, in the beginning was the mind energy, and the mind energy became flesh. In other words, when I engage in a frequency of mind, that frequency will organize, will turn into organic structure. Look into some videos on YouTube on cymatics, 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 and it will show you what sound does to the world of so-called matter, to the energy world. And there are just some great videos that will show you when you hit a certain note with an instrument, literally the organization on the surface of water, the organization of energy, it's just like patterns, just amazing. Your voice is a somatic instrument that organizes your physiology through resonance, creates certain conditions. And in the same way, if you look at those cymatics videos, how the so-called physical expression changes when the frequency changes. Well, guess what your voice is? It's a somatic instrument. Creates frequencies in your physiology. And those frequencies, just like the sound from the piano strings, radiate out from you. Now, when we come into the human realm, we add another feature to the law of resonance. And that is that not only do those frequencies, not only does that resonance create motion, but it creates motion toward. So if I hold an energy in my mind, if I hold a thought, that thought by definition is energy, and energy by definition means motion. Mind energy, thought, creating an energetic motion means somebody is going to show up in my life, and that's going to be the person that's in resonance with my thought. And it doesn't matter whether my thought is about what I want or what I don't want. In fact, the ones about what we don't want tend to be more powerful because they tend to hold emotional amplifiers of hostility and fear. In fact, the last few weeks we've talked a lot about the insight that Job, who set up through his own mind energy some terribly, terribly negative things in his life. And few people bothered to listen to the lesson that he gave. What was the lesson after he had all of those losses? What was it that restored everything to him? Plus, his insight was this, quote, "That which I feared most has come upon me. That which I dreaded has happened to me." It's an expression of the law of resonance. And if we have been brainwashed into the one world religion of blame, and again, my offering is, by the age of 4, you and I, every one of you that's listening right now, the fact that you can understand the English language, you and I were brainwashed into that religion from day one. And those energetic patterns which bring about that which I feared most, when they resonate and form a reality in my mind, they create a construct that's painted on the inside of my eyeballs, and because I'm in blame, it paints a picture not of me, I'm the source of it, it's happening to me again because I'm the creator of it. But when I live in denial and I've dissociated from the cause in me, then this person that shows up in response to that law of resonance that's created motion toward me out of that which I most feared and dreaded happening to me, their behavior, directed by the resonance of my own fear or dread, will resonate the dissociated parts of that fear and dread. And here's what happens. I then build my perception, the construct of my mind, out of the very dissociated part of me that they resonate with their behavior. So I literally, this is what the word projection means. You know, the culture psychologically tends to teach that projection is, I take something that's inside of me and put it outside of me. That's not projection, that's externalization. Projection is a totally internal process. You resonate something in me that I've dissociated from, and I use that information to build a picture of you. I put that picture on the inside of my eyeballs, and I think I'm actually looking at you. And the indicator that this is what's going on, the infallible, absolute, total, 12,000% infallible indicator that this is what's happening is that the corrupt data of hostility or fear moves along with the picture that I painted on the inside of my eyeballs, ostensibly of you. So now I have a perception, and my perception is a projection. And I see what I think is you, built out of the very brain cells that I've dissociated from and denied in myself. And then I complete the cycle by externalizing this picture and believing that what I'm looking at, painted on the inside of my eyeballs, is actually you. Let's check and see if that's true. Have you ever had someone accuse you of saying something you've absolutely never said or doing something you have absolutely never done? Have you ever been accused of that? Of course, I've asked that question hundreds of times in workshops, and every time most people laugh, some people cry. Yeah, I've had that happen. Notice the condition of the mind that accused you of what you didn't say and what you didn't do. Notice 100% of the time it's some form of hostility or fear. Their mind is using corrupt data, building a picture of you out of what they've dissociated from, and now the cycle of the one world religion of blame is completed, and you're the problem in my life. And I now have to get you to change. This is ever going to be resolved in me. Liar, liar, pants on fire. Hostility and fear mean that my mind is using my dissociated, corrupt data to build my brain's image of whoever it is I'm blaming. And I literally see a body. You know, the human mind has this amazing capacity. It turns thoughts into pictures. It converts digital information into visual images. And the visual images it shows me are painted on the inside of my eyeballs. They are never outside of me. But I pretend they are, so I externalize my projection, and the cycle is complete. I really do believe that it's all your fault. Now, if you notice, you've been through a particular painful reality 87 different times with 42 different people. You're the only one that was there every time. Did it ever occur to you that that corrupt data in your mind is yours, and that corrupt data that's causing your pain is yours, and you're the only one that's been there every time it's happened to you? Why is this happening to me again? Because I'm a creator. Why is this a common story of humanity? Probably the greatest atrocity done to us down through the ages, and that we've bought into, is we've had hidden from us the fact that we are by nature creators. You and I are creative beings. And when I buy into some sort of generational pattern of hostility or fear, a power person dynamic, then when I create that very result that 1,000 generations in my bloodline have created, I hold my breath, I blame my child, my spouse, my neighbor, my coworker. I create an enemy. No one is born with enemies. No one is born with prejudice. It's built into us by an insane culture of blame, an insane culture of hostility and fear. Jeannie played a song for me. Actually, it's kind of a few things that came together. Last night, we watched a video called 20 Days in Mariupol. And it's documentation of the first 20 days of Russia just obliterating that city. Very graphic. I mean, this is a guy with a camera who's on the ground filming it all. Estimates, low estimates, are 25,000 people have died. And you think about that. It's like, imagine you, your mother, and your father, the three of you. In 20 days, 7,000 times the equivalent of that were killed by the Russians in Mariupol. How bizarre is that? And then Jeannie this morning, just before the radio show started, shared with me a song that she was saying that she hadn't heard since Ryan and a friend of his, a girlfriend of his, were in school as kids, and that his girlfriend had sung it. Listen to the words of it. It's powerful. My grown-up Christmas list. Powerful to listen to in the context of just watching this graphic violence and slaughter in Mariupol just recently here on our planet. And how virtually everyone who's in the "why is this happening to me again" game is an unreformed reformer. Everybody wants that, and virtually everybody's in denial about their own rage, their own guilt, their own fear, and wondering, why is this happening to me again? It's the common story of a world of people who don't know that they're creators, who think that someone else is responsible for what's happening in their lives. And sadly, wars like the one that was so graphically represented last night, if you can find the film, breathe, have worksheets. Had to cancel many goals as I was watching it, had to do a lot of breathing. Several tears came just to watch the insanity of what the extreme position or the extreme result is of people who live in denial, dissociation, projection. People who don't know that they're creators. Sadly, the common refrain, the common story of humanity is, why is this happening to me again? And when I realize, as you've heard me say many times, the profound power and insight of this man 2,000 years ago who did not teach about theology, there's one single sentence where he says exactly why he's here. And it isn't about dogma, it isn't about doctrine, it isn't about all the crap that's become important to those who live in denial, dissociation, and projection. His statement was pretty simple. I come to bring you life. Best definition of life I found, love flowing through a cell. What do we do to inhibit love from flowing through every cell in our structure? You watch the average person in denial, and when somebody does the behavior they've been directing the world to deliver to them, they hold their breath, they hide the most pain part of themselves from themselves. The person drawn by that energy does a behavior, and that energy is projected into their brain's image of that person, and literally they see the body made up of what they've dissociated from. They see that picture. Again, it appears on the inside of their eyeballs, and because it's so close to the outside, they think it's actually out there, but it's not out there. And the genius of this man, Yeshua, 2,000 years ago, how did he understand this? I don't know. But he did know precisely how to collapse that picture painted on the inside of our eyeballs. And he did know that if you could collapse that picture would collapse in on the footprint and give you access to the dissociated part of your own mind. And if you breathed, and if you stood in willingness to have that lifted, then the insight would come from seeing the dissociated part of your own mind directly, rather than only seeing it when you put it into your brain's image of someone else. And if love was present in that space, if life was moving in us, then the unconscious dynamics behind our own projections would begin to dissolve. And the dissolution of those dynamics within every mind, heart, and being on the planet is what's called forgiveness. Notice how deeply a world in projection has turned that around and told me that forgiveness is how I'm going to let you off the hook because of what's moving inside of me. And of course, if I let you off of the hook for what's moving inside of me, I've not done one darn thing to change what's moving inside of me. Notice when people are in conflict, they generally walk away thinking, speaking to themselves about the other guy. about the picture painted on the inside of their eyeballs, with no realization whatsoever as that picture is made up of their own dissociated content. And the discovery of that is a monumental insight for each person to have. The day that you can engage that tool and have the memory, oh my God, I really believe the picture on the inside of my eyeballs, and now I see the piece in me. I got it. That day will never leave you. Unless you stop doing your work and destroy your mind and your body in an effort to keep things hidden, deteriorating. But if you actually choose to own, instead of having conversations about everybody else that we can project on, if we can actually own and have a conversation about ourselves, walk away from a conflict, walk away from a stress, walk away from a failure, talking about what's me, what do I need to correct in here, what's going on inside of me, then I'm continuously upgrading. And I'm talking about decades of upgrading needed as I change the mind energy of blame to a conversation about myself and my responsibility for what's going on in my physiology. You want to be free of your pain? You will never be free of your pain by thinking or having a conversation with yourself about somebody else. You will never get free of your pain with that. All the defenses, all the rages, all the blame, all the huffing, all the puffing is all based on the projection that somebody else is the reason my physiology is serving me up this feeling again, is serving me up this pain again. That is a pathway that leads to aging, pain, suffering, disease, and death. Guaranteed. If you turn that pathway around, and when that conflict occurs, you let go of the conversation about everybody else, and you start working on upgrading your own mind energy, then that's the pathway to healing, to aliveness, to eternal life, which is what we're designed for. So if you happen to give a listen to that song, My Grown-Up Christmas Witch, hold the space that the awesome mind energy of that song becomes something that you're willing to be a part of bringing into the world, that you're willing to forgive everything in you that has somebody else to blame, and upgrade every piece of mind energy that you hold that you've ever projected into your brain's image of anyone else. Hold the space for that, and invite you to become a deeper and deeper part of a community whose work is all about upgrading every disintegrative thoughts. Remember, we listen to Einstein. Einstein says this: on such things as matter, bodies, let's say, on such things as matter, we've been all wrong. What we have heretofore called matter is energy whose vibrations have become so low as to be perceptible to the senses. There is no matter. We don't live in material world. Your physiology is an energetic accumulation of mind energy reflecting as physiology, so lowered as to become perceptible to the senses. Focused on your denial and your dissociation, and you find hostility and fear acceptable, and you pointed it to people sometimes closest to you, expect suffering, disease, and death, because that's what works. That's how it works. If, on the other hand, you choose to step into responsibility, and when interaction, you start to have conversations with yourself about yourself. Oh, what's the energy that's impinging on my wherever your pain is at this moment? And by breathing and by holding love present for that, you can lift the pain off of that tissue, out of your structure, and ultimately, literally rewire your genes. But your conversation can't be about hostility and fear. Because the simple act of a conversation about hostility or fear, by definition, means you're integrating mind energy based on hostility or fear. And that means death, suffering, disease, degeneration. There is no such thing as physical disease because there is no physical. When you start to convert your mind to thinking in terms of energy, then if a part of your tissue structure is saying, ouch, you start going, what have I imposed on that tissue that I need to be responsible for in order to remove it? Because as long as you're living out of that one world religion of blame, as long as you've got a conversation going on about somebody else and you huff and you puff and you shoot your anger at them, you just add another level to your own disease process. So we're inviting everybody to make a shift. And of course, it's a learning process. I don't know anybody, and I certainly include myself in that, perfectly. But together we're learning. Together we're putting the tools into deeper and deeper and deeper use. So that each conversation, when there's turmoil or trauma of any kind, is a conversation about myself, to myself, to clean up my own mind. Remember that every reality that reflects in the mind tells more about the content of that mind than the world they think they're looking at. And if you read that book of Job, where he says, that's what I feared most, go back and read the first few lines. What does it start out with? Job is this righteous guy, but he's afraid his children aren't going to. There's his mind energy, that which I feared most. He's afraid his kids are going to offend God, and he destroys his life with it. Just that subtle a mind energy is all it takes. So what is it in your life that you have fear about? Notice your mind's a liar. You don't have fear about anything. If you have fear, it just means you have fear. It's not about anything. The minute you make it about what somebody did or somebody said or what happened, you just went into denial. It's not about anything other than that's what's there in you. You got to stop these stories about everybody else. There is no about. There's only if there's hostility or fear in you, there's disease, there's going to be suffering, pain. And when you can take responsibility for that and stop thinking it's about anything other than the content of your own mind, then you've opened the gate to be able to change all of the content of your mind. And after all, that's what we're here to do, to support the knowledge of that piece of information being available to every mind, heart, and being on the planet. And if on a day-to-day basis, every time you have an experience, it brings along some sort of down feeling, some sort of hostility, some form of fear, some form of judgment, some form of blame, have a conversation to yourself about yourself and why you're holding that energy. And then, when you find that can't figure out why, apply forgiveness. And as you do, watch how you develop a new habit of being able to drop into the dissociated content of your own mind directly and bring it to love so that it just vanishes. It just dissolves. So the word forgive is about dissolution of the energetic patterns that our mind puts into our brain's image of everybody else. Responsibility doesn't mean I'm to blame for that process. Blame's just another twisted thought structure. You notice in the word responsibility, there's nothing about blame, there's nothing about guilt, there's nothing about fault. It's just, oh, this is mine. And now that I own it, I can breathe in the presence of it. And now that I'm breathing in the presence of it, if I don't like it, I can throw it out. I can forgive it. And the active presence of love will dissolve that energy. That's the bottom line of this work. And I'm delighted that you're here to be part of the conversation. And if you're on one of those stations where we can't see you in our control panel, our call-in number is 563-999-3581. If you call that number, you'll be listening to the show. And if you have a question and you push 1 on your phone pad, that will raise a hand in the control panel, and Jeannie will introduce you by your area code, and we'll be having a conversation. So, Miss Jeannie, do we have anybody in the phone queue with a hand up or anything happening in the chat room?
No, it's all quiet on this end. Are you going to read the words to that song?
Do you have it in front of you? I don't have it in front of you. If you do, sweetie, that would be awesome. That'd be sweet to hear you read them, and as you're reading them, I'll just breathe along with you. Maybe invite everybody else to do the same. Just get centered and get quiet and let your mind capture these words.
I put a link to the lyrics as well as to Kelly Clarkson singing it in the notes for today.
Cool.
So you can click on that. So it says, it's like she's writing to Santa. She says, "Do you remember me? I sat upon your knee. I wrote to you with childhood fantasy. Well, I'm all grown up now, and I still need help somehow. I'm not a child, but my heart can still dream. So here's my life." I don't know if I can read it.
You can read it. I'll breathe with you, sweetie.
So here's my lifelong wish, my grown-up Christmas list. Not for myself, but for a world in need. No more lives torn apart, that wars would never start, and time will heal all hearts, and everyone would have a friend, and right would always win, and love will never end. Now, this is my grown-up Christmas list. As children, we believed the grandest sight to see was something lovely wrapped beneath the tree. But heaven only knows that packages and bows can never heal a hurting human soul. No more lives torn apart, that wars would never start, and time would heal all hearts, and everyone would have a friend, and right would always win, and love would never end. That's my grown-up Christmas list. What is this illusion called the innocence of youth? Maybe only in our blind belief can we ever find the truth. No more lives torn apart, that wars will never start, that time will heal all hearts. Everyone would have a friend, right would always win, and love would never end. This is my grown-up Christmas list, my lifelong wish. This is my grown-up Christmas list. And we now have two hands up.
Great. And I hold the space once again for everything that moved last night as we watched that film. For both of us, that the next level of that be liberated and released, forgiven, that we can become a space for really, truly creating something different.
So the first hand is 619. I believe it's Peter. You are on the air.
Hello, Michael.
Welcome, sir. How are you?
Good. I was doing the worksheets as many as I can, and I noticed something. I literally stopped breathing, and I catch myself gasping. What is this?
Yep.
Why is that? And then
Well, you
force
remember?
myself.
Yeah. You remember the ancients said the veil of the temple must be rent in twain. My offering would be that we're not talking about a purple curtain in a church. The temple is your body-mind unit. The veil is the barrier between the subconscious and the unconscious mind, i.e., that which creates an unnatural condition where we have parts of our own mind that we have no access to. I don't believe that humans are designed to have an unconscious mind at all. We create it artificially. And the way we create it is through the holding of the breath. Literally, the holding of the breath stops the movement of that energy that we don't want to look at, that we don't want to deal with. But what it does is it locks it into tissue, and the more the breath is held, the higher the amplitude is of the disintegrative energy locked in tissue that ultimately creates all of our diseases, all suffering, and all death. So that's why you'll hear me, if you go back from day one of this radio show, you'll hear me, probably more than once in just about every radio show we've done in the last 12 years, talk about the need to breathe. Because when somebody's holding the breath, literally, they're rolling along, doing a worksheet, and the worksheet's getting close to something that they've hidden from themselves all their lives, or more likely has been hidden from generations and generations of ancestors in their bloodline. The breath spontaneously stops, and that inhibits the flow and therefore the awareness of the underlying dissociated mind energy. That's why you'll see at several germane points in the worksheet, there's a reminder in big bold letters to breathe, because that's how you open the barrier. Literally, there's a veil between the subconscious and the unconscious, and when that's closed, that unconscious information can't come to awareness.
Okay.
And
I just thought
the
it was
addiction to holding the breath, I mean, if you watch most people, they subventilate 50, 60, 70%. I would say that the average person in this culture probably breathes about maybe 25 to 30% as much as they ideally would in order to be filled with full vitality. And everything that the breath is held around is a disintegrative energy that's literally being nailed down into tissue and creating their disease processes, their discomfort, their pain, the reason why they move into addictive behaviors and ultimately commit suicide, which all death, I would offer, is suicide. We do it to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense to your question?
Totally, yeah. I just thought it was a nice thing to do to breathe to keep you healthier while you're doing the exercise. But I didn't realize, or I forgot, literally stopped breathing like 6 times. So,
and you'll notice when you start breathing, you're more in touch with what's going on under the surface, right?
Yep.
It's literally the key way to opening that barrier and becoming aware of our own unconscious dynamics. And when you look at the step 4 in the worksheet where you bring love conscious, active, and present, the idea of being, what ties in for you that brings you to the most powerful space where not love like, the mamby-pamby stuff of the culture, sexual athletics or sacrificing yourself, whatever, but where literally the true state of being love shows up in your own mind. And when that is present and the veil opens, whatever's in hiding, doesn't matter if it's 2 generations old, 10 generations, if it's 1,000 generations back in the genes, that energy will open and the presence of love will dissolve it. And it's that dissolution that is forgiveness, that frees us from those patterns.
Okay. That sounds good.
That's it, sir. All right.
Thank you.
Delighted. Great question. Thank you for allowing us to clarify. Appreciate your inquiring mind. Any other thoughts for you?
No, I'm good. I'm just going to keep doing the work too.
All right. Blessings. Take care.
Thanks.
All right.
Next caller is 610. Miss Susan, you are on the air.
Hi, guys. Hello.
Welcome, dear heart.
Hello,
how are you?
I'm pretty good. I have been thinking about my pets, my animals, because they seem to take no offense at anything. And we don't abuse them, but there are many, many animals who are terribly abused, and they don't take offense. And I was thinking, I'd like to be like that. But of course, we have something else. We have another dimension, or the ability to make assessments, but that's complicated because we are already projecting. I don't know how to. What you've been talking about is exactly what I've been thinking about the forgiveness process. It's a wonderful gift to have, but I feel as if I'm really, really still very bad at it. I have goals I'm not even aware of, but then again, if you don't feel very good, you realize you had a goal. I don't know how to even, I shouldn't have pressed one. I haven't formed. I'd like to be like an animal. I'd like to be like an animal, but that means not knowing. And in fact, we don't know. So how can we become not knowing, but not dumb?
Well, my offering would be, and of course you've never heard me say this before, all of the above. You use every tool you've got to undo the unconscious mind and come from that state of being. And what I hear in your language is that very likely, having had several conversations with you over the last several years, that with that judgment about self, you're probably facing a power person dynamic again.
Mm-hmm.
Those words you spoke about yourself?
Yeah.
So a power person worksheet might be a good one to do around that and see what you discover.
As I thought I discovered it all. I guess not. That's an old story. That's an old story. I thought I was done with that story.
Yep.
I guess not.
Well, and when you realize that you cannot process something that is a higher level of trauma than the level of your vitality, then you realize that, if you're at a level 1 vitality and you visit your level 10 trauma, gee, I processed through it. It's gone. Look, it's done. Well, the part of it I was able to embrace, my level 1 trauma is gone, but I haven't even started to access or look at or develop the capacity to experience my level 2 trauma, or my level 3, or my level 4, or 5, or 6, or 7, or 8, or 9, or 10. I'm not going to move through that deepest layer, that level 10 trauma, until I get to a level 10 vitality. And, it's like every tool you've got, all of the above, and when you realize the enormity of what we're talking about, just take the scriptural idea where they weren't talking about theology, but we're talking about, in the word sin being energies off the mark. The energies that are off the mark of the previous 3 to 4 generations are stored within your structure until you connect with love. So when you think that in your structure and mind, literally every trauma energy, every thought based, every experience, every reality based in some form of hostility or fear of both your mother and your father are stored in your genes, of their mothers and fathers are stored in your genes, of their mothers and fathers are stored in your genes, and theirs, that's stored in you. I mean, can you imagine what 4 generations ago your great-great-great-great-grandmother was experiencing in the way of life? Was it pleasant? Was it wonderful? Was it traumatic? Was it insane? And your grandfather and everyone on both sides since then, that energetically that's all stored within your structure. And then, of course, if the scriptures are accurate there, and I believe they're talking about physiology and they are absolutely accurate, then where did the 4th generation back get theirs? And the 4th generation before that, and the 4th before that? And who was the last one in the bloodline that you know of that could have even conceived of processing those things, having a conversation like the one we're having now of, yes, I'm feeling out these layers? I mean, is there anybody? I can't imagine anybody in my family system.
Yeah, and you've said before, you don't have to know the specifics. You don't have to know
Precisely.
that, because we can't. So.
Well, it's not that we can't. I think that our denial inhibits our ability to become aware of the details of that sort of thing. But when we're standing in a space of enough willingness, and we've strengthened our higher faculties sufficiently, we can definitely come right into direct contact with those things. You know, you remember I shared several weeks ago on the show, there was a gentleman who'd done the codependence intensive, made some monumental shifts over a period of 6 or 7 months, and then it was probably about 3 months later that he wrote me. He's like, Michael, I just had this memory come up of what happened to my grandfather when he was 2 and 3 and 4, and what kind of trauma he was going through, and why he drank alcohol all his life. And I mean, full-blown memory, visual memory of it comes out. It's all energetically stored within us.
So it isn't because he actually had known on some level his grandfather. You say this is available to us way back, even if we don't know the person at all or any details about their life.
Yes. And I have this sneaking suspicion, I can't prove it, but I have this sneaking suspicion. In fact, there's a song out there, and I think the melody line of it goes, and I'm my own grandpa. I have this sneaking suspicion that what we don't resolve, we get to re-enter the genetic chain as many times as we need to come to resolution. And there's never going to be an easier time to work through it than now. So breathing with you.
Well, I'm thinking of my daughter who has found herself depressed again after she had this 25-year marriage with a man she finally was able to get free from. And she was on a depression medication for a while and decided she wanted to go off of it so she could feel her feelings and process her stuff.
Right.
A couple of weeks or so ago, she went back on it. She said, Mom, I have this very demanding job. It's more than I can handle. I can't do my job. I wasn't focusing. I need to be on this. Life is short. I'm choosing this. I know it's not ideal. But I'm making this choice because I've got this very demanding job and I'm much better at it, even though I miss the full spectrum of my feelings, but I'm making this choice.
Right.
And I'm not inclined to argue with her. I'm not going to.
I wouldn't either.
I'm good.
And what I would be offering to her is, one, I don't know if she's got worksheets, if she's ever used them, but there's a tool that even if one is on medication, they can process those things so that if there comes a time when it's time to let go of the medication, they've got enough of it processed that it's not overwhelming when they take away the inhibitor.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd introduce her to the forgiveness process and invite her. And you know, I think that you, of all people, are eminently qualified to support your granddaughter because you've been there, done that, given up the medication, and gone through so many layers. Mm. So perhaps, offering her, so here's what I did. I've gone through some of those layers, and I'm not taking the medication now, and I'm pretty well balanced because I've been working through it. And sweetheart, you don't have to do anything other than carry on with your wondrous work and your wondrous life. And if you want any support in moving through some of those layers, then I'm here to support you.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks.
And if we ever get to where we're in her neck of the woods or she's in our neck of the woods, I would love to breathe her and do some energy field work on her. Because the work you've done has already opened a space in her genes to make her process easier. Doesn't mean it's going to be a piece of cake, but all the work that you've done, it's part of her upliftment. So maybe the next time you see her, you might dig out the energy field worksheets, practice a little bit doing the energy field work, and just invite her to breathe and put your hands on her and walk through those processes and be the space and hold the space and give her the gift of coming out the other side of another layer.
Lovely thought. I see it's 2:00 and I wanted to send my love to Jeannie. A lot of powerful feelings going on there, Jeannie.
Thank you.
We were both in tears last night as we watched this video. I mean, it was so up close. It wasn't like a war movie. It was a man with a camera who's right there in the thick of it at the blown-up hospital with the bodies, with the trenches where they're just dumping bodies off the streets. I mean, it's pretty graphic.
They're doing that right now.
They're doing it right now, yeah. Yeah, so definitely when we went to sleep last night, it was with the request of Ruka to process that energy, and then the song showed up this morning. It was just like a kind of sweet relief.
That is. Thanks.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you. Yeah.
All right. Have a blessed one.
Thanks. You too.
Everybody, have the best year yet of your eternal lives. It's an awesome gift to give the world. Even as crazy as the world is, the world needs it. You're empowered to give it.